The pain shot through my arm like lightning as I cradled my swollen wrists against my chest. Marcus stood over me, his face a mix of anger and sudden realization of what he'd done. Mom and Dad rushed into the kitchen, drawn by the sound of my scream and the crash of plates hitting the floor. "What happened here?" Dad demanded, looking between us. Before I could speak, Marcus jumped in. Emma was being clumsy again, knocked over the dishes while loading the dishwasher. His voice was steady, practiced. At 28, my older brother had perfected the art of lying to our parents. I was 22, home from college for summer break, and this wasn't the first time Marcus had hurt me. It started with small things: pushes, shoves, accidental trips. But today was different. He grabbed my wrist and twisted it because I'd refused to give him my car keys. He needed money, he said, and was planning to sell my car without asking. "No," I said, wincing through the pain. He twisted my wrist because I wouldn't let him take my car. Mom's face immediately shifted into damage control mode. "Emma, honey, you're being dramatic. I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding." I held up my rapidly swelling wrist, which was now turning an alarming shade of purple. "This isn't a misunderstanding, Mom. Look at it." Dad stepped closer, his expression darkening as he examined my wrist. For a moment, I thought he might finally see the truth, but then Marcus spoke again. "I barely touched her, Dad. You know how she exaggerates everything." Mom was already reaching for her car keys. "We should get this checked out, just in case. Emma, remember what we talked about. Family problems stay within the family." The drive to the emergency room was tense. Marcus sat in the back with me, shooting me warning glances while Mom rehearsed the story we were supposed to tell. "You were carrying too many plates, lost your balance on the kitchen step. It's simple, believable, and nobody needs to ask any more questions." I stayed silent, tears rolling down my cheeks, not just from the physical pain, but from the familiar ache of being silenced, of watching my family choose Marcus over me again and again. At the hospital, the nurse who checked us in, her name tag read Sandra, noticed my hesitation when Mom explained about the stairs and plates. Her eyes lingered on the distinctive finger-shaped bruises forming around my wrist. "I need to examine the patient alone," Sandra said firmly when Mom tried to follow me into the exam room. "Standard protocol." "But I'm her mother," Mom protested. "And I'm her nurse," Sandra replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Please wait outside." Once the door closed, Sandra's professional demeanor softened. She pulled up a chair and sat at eye level with me. "Emma, I need you to be honest with me. Those marks on your wrists, they're not from falling with plates, are they?" I stared at the floor, years of family loyalty warring with the desperate need to finally tell someone the truth. Sandra waited patiently, her presence somehow both professional and comforting. "My brother," I whispered finally. "He twisted my wrist because I wouldn't let him take my car." Sandra nodded, making notes in my chart. "Has this happened before?" The floodgates opened. I told her about the years of accidents, the push falls, the playful shoves that left bruises. How my parents always dismissed it, how Marcus always had an excuse, how I'd learned to stay quiet to keep the peace. "He's their golden boy," I explained, wiping tears with my good hand. "Star athlete, successful business career. They'd never believe he'd do anything wrong." Sandra's face remained neutral, but I saw something flash in her eyes. Determination, maybe, or resolve. "I need to step out for a moment to order your x-ray," she said, standing up. "Is there anyone you'd like me to call? Someone outside your family?" I thought of my best friend Lily, who'd been telling me for years to stand up to Marcus. "Yes," I said, giving Sandra her number. As Sandra left the room, I heard my mother's voice in the hallway, still trying to manage the situation. It was just a simple accident. But something was different now. For the first time in years, someone was listening to my side of the story. I didn't know what Sandra was going to do, but as I sat there holding my throbbing wrist, I felt a strange mix of fear and hope. The x-ray would confirm what I already knew. My wrist was fractured. What I didn't know was that Sandra's quiet exit from my exam room would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The x-ray results came back confirming a clear spiral fracture, the kind that typically occurs from twisting, not falling. As Sandra explained this to me, I heard commotion in the hallway. Through the small window in the exam room door, I could see my parents arguing with someone. "Family problems should be handled privately," my mother's voice carried through. "There's no need for all this." Then a new voice, firm and authoritative. "Mrs. Carter, this is hospital protocol when we suspect non-accidental injury." My heart raced. Next to me, Sandra continued wrapping my wrist as if she couldn't hear the chaos outside. But I noticed her deliberate movements, how she was documenting every bruise with her phone's camera. "This is absurd," my father's voice boomed. "Our son would never." The door opened, cutting him off. A woman in a blazer entered, followed by 2 police officers. My mother's face went pale. "Hello, Emma. I'm Detective Martinez," the woman said, showing her badge. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about your injury." Before I could respond, my mother burst into the room. "Emma, remember what we discussed. Family loyalty." "Mrs. Carter," Detective Martinez interrupted, "I need you to wait outside while we speak with your daughter." "I know my rights. I'm her mother. And right now, you're interfering with an investigation." The detective's tone left no room for argument. "Please wait outside with your husband and son." After they left, Sandra stayed with me while I told Detective Martinez everything. Years of incidents, documented with dates and details I'd kept hidden in a journal on my phone. Photos of previous bruises I'd taken but never shown anyone. Text messages from Marcus threatening me if I ever snitched. "Your friend Lily is on her way," Sandra mentioned during a pause. "She's offered you a place to stay." I nodded, grateful. The thought of going home seemed impossible now. Through the window, I could see Marcus pacing, his confident facade cracking. Our parents huddled together, looking lost and afraid. For once, they weren't in control of the narrative. Detective Martinez made notes as I spoke, her face professional but kind. "Emma, what you're doing right now, speaking up, it's incredibly brave. We can file for an immediate protective order." My parents, I hesitated. "They'll never forgive me." "Maybe," Sandra said gently, "they need to earn your forgiveness instead." Soft knock interrupted us. Lily poked her head in, her face full of concern and determination. Seeing her, someone who would always believe me, always encouraged me to stand up for myself, gave me strength. "I'd like to press charges," I said firmly, looking directly at Detective Martinez. She nodded, writing something in her notebook. "We'll need to take formal statements. The fracture pattern and bruising clearly support your account." Outside, I heard Marcus's voice rising. "This is ridiculous. She's lying." "Sir," a police officer warned, "lower your voice." But Marcus was unraveling, his carefully constructed image falling apart. "She's always been jealous of me, always trying to ruin everything." His outburst echoed through the hallway, and suddenly I heard my mother gasp. Perhaps for the first time, she was hearing what Marcus really sounded like. Not the perfect son she convinced herself he was, but the bully I'd always known. Sandra helped me gather my things while Lily waited. Detective Martinez explained the next steps: formal statements, photographs, the protective order process. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's life unfold. "Emma." My father appeared in the doorway, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Please, can we just talk about this as a family?" Detective Martinez stepped between us. "Mr. Carter, any communication needs to go through proper channels now." As Lily led me toward the exit, I passed my mother. She reached for me, tears in her eyes. "We were just trying to protect the family," she whispered. I stopped, turning to face her. "No, Mom, you were protecting Marcus. You just never realized the family needed protection from him." Her hand dropped, and in that moment I saw something shift in her expression. The first crack in her denial, perhaps. Or maybe just the realization that she couldn't control this situation like she had controlled everything else. Marcus stood at the end of the hallway, flanked by police officers, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. Our eyes met briefly. For the first time in my life, I didn't look away first. As Lily drove me to her apartment, I felt a complex mix of emotions: fear, relief, guilt, and something else. Something that felt like freedom. "You did the right thing," Lily said, squeezing my good hand. Looking at my wrapped wrist, I knew she was right. But I also knew this was just the beginning. The hard part, standing firm against the pressure, guilt, and manipulation that would surely come, was still ahead. What I didn't know then was that Sandra hadn't just called the police. She'd set in motion a series of events that would expose far more than just my broken wrist. A week after the hospital incident, sitting in Lily's cozy apartment, I discovered what Sandra had really done. Detective Martinez visited with a thick file under her arm. "We found 7 other reports," she said, spreading documents across the coffee table, all from different hospitals over the past 5 years. "Young women with suspicious injuries, all mentioning your brother Marcus." My hands shook as I looked at the reports. College girls, co-workers, even a former neighbor, all had sought medical attention for injuries they claimed were accidents. All had eventually withdrawn their complaints after pressure from their families or Marcus's connections. Sandra recognized him, Detective Martinez explained. She treated one of the previous victims. This time, she made sure everything was properly documented. The detective slid another paper across the table. A statement from Marcus's ex-girlfriend Jessica, dated 3 years ago. She tried to report him, but somehow the complaint had disappeared from police records. My parents' influence, I realized. They'd handled it, just like it handled everything else. But not this time. The evidence was overwhelming. More victims came forward, encouraged by Sandra's thorough documentation and my decision to press charges. Marcus's perfect facade crumbled as the investigation deepened. My parents tried everything to stop it. They showed up at Lily's apartment, begging me to reconsider. "He'll lose his job," my mother pleaded. "His whole future." "What about my future?" I asked, holding up my still healing wrist. "What about all the other women's futures?" My father attempted to use his connections, but Detective Martinez was incorruptible. The hospital's documentation was ironclad, and Sandra's testimony about the pattern of abuse was compelling. 3 weeks after my emergency room visit, Marcus was arrested. The charges included multiple counts of assault, witness intimidation, and domestic violence. My parents sat in stunned silence during his arraignment, their influence useless against the mountain of evidence. The story hit local news. More women contacted the police. Marcus's company, finally forced to acknowledge the complaints they previously buried, fired him. The carefully constructed world my parents had built around him collapsed. "We just wanted to protect you," my mother said during a chance encounter at the grocery store. She looked tired, defeated. "No," I replied, finally voicing what I'd known for years. "You wanted to protect your image. There's a difference." My father stopped trying to call after I blocked his number. Instead, he sent a letter through my lawyer. "I failed you," he wrote. "I was so focused on protecting your brother that I forgot to protect you." It was an apology, but it came too late to erase years of enablement. Sandra contacted me before the trial. "I hope you know how many people you've helped," she said. "Your courage gave others the strength to speak up." The trial was difficult. Sitting in the courtroom, listening to victim after victim describe similar experiences, I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. Marcus sat at the defendant's table, his arrogance replaced by desperation as his lawyers failed to dismiss the evidence. My parents attended every day, sitting in the back, looking smaller somehow. My mother cried during my testimony. My father couldn't meet my eyes when I described years of abuse they'd ignored. Marcus was sentenced to 7 years. The judge cited the pattern of behavior and the extensive cover-ups as factors in the harsh sentence. As he was led away, he looked back at me with hatred in his eyes. But this time, I didn't flinch. 6 months later, I sat in Sandra's office at the hospital. We'd started a support group for abuse survivors, using my story to help others find their voice. Sometimes, I told the group, the hardest part isn't standing up to your abuser. It's standing up to the people who enable them. My parents divorced shortly after Marcus's sentencing. My mother joined a therapy group for parents of abusers, finally confronting her role in enabling his behavior. My father moved to another state, sending occasional letters that I haven't opened. Lily helped me move into my own apartment, complete with security cameras and a state-of-the-art alarm system. "Just in case," she said, though we both knew Marcus wouldn't be free for years. The spiral fracture in my wrist healed, leaving a slight ache during cold weather, a reminder not of the pain, but of the day I finally stood up for myself. Last week, I received a card from Sandra. Inside was a photo of our support group and a note. "Sometimes the strongest families are the ones we choose." Looking at my healed wrists, I knew she was right. Strength wasn't in keeping quiet to protect others. It was in speaking up to protect yourself. And sometimes that makes all the difference.